Hey, welcome to day 5 of the Batshit Crazy Planning Week. I think that no matter how much you've done this week or how much you've accomplished, you can really feel good about the work that you've done because you've started to let go of some of the overwhelm of planning. You've realized that we could just batch this down into 15 minutes a day. We can chunk it up. We can really breathe around it. We can see that our content has to do something for us. We don't need to just splatter it out there for no good reason. So we have a plan. We can now think, right? We can now tell our brain, it's okay. We can do this. And so today I want to talk about how to, let me just find my stuff, how to repurpose your things, right? Because at this point, you've created a piece of home-based content and you are ready to break it up and use it in different places. Now, in the workbook, I've given you some ideas about how I repurpose. But remember, I have a team of people who also help me. So all of the different places that my stuff goes, a lot of times my team is taking care of it. I don't ever look at Pinterest, for example. My VA puts everything on Pinterest, and my other VA puts everything on YouTube. They take care of a lot of the actual tech pieces. If you are working alone, you might feel really overwhelmed by the idea of repurposing. So let's talk about what repurposing actually means and how to make it simple for yourself. It doesn't mean taking a whole blog post and sticking it someplace else, like into an email. Repurposing always requires some massaging, like making things a little bit different for each home base that you might be on. So if you have a blog and you repurpose it to email, it's going to need to sound just a little bit different for an email audience of people who are in your community versus a blog that's going just on the internet. Um, but there are lots of things you can do. For example, if you love to do video or you have a podcast, you can get your videos and audios transcribed and use those words in many different places. You could add any place that requires the written word. So those could become emails or they could become social posts, for example. They could become LinkedIn posts. They could become fodder for a visual Pinterest post and some keywords, right? Um, Repurposing could be that you have several quotations that you love from the article that you wrote, and you pull out those quotations and you use those as social posts and use them for engagement. Or you take the topic that you were talking about in a home base piece and you think about like, oh, how do I have some real life stories that I could tell around this? You could repurpose your stories based on the information that you gave in a blog, for example. There's so many ways that you could pull out to repurpose. For example, if you tend to do Facebook stories, you could definitely use Facebook post, repurpose your stories into the Facebook post for the feed. You could download a Facebook Live that you did and repurpose it in lots of ways, not only by transcribing it or taking the audio out, but you could also reuse that video on YouTube and build a YouTube channel for people who specifically are looking for your stuff on YouTube. There's just endless amounts of ideas, but I want to talk about the biggest problem with repurposing is that it's very easy to get overwhelmed because there are so many options, that's when we get really stuck. It's like I always say use this like analogy of when you go to the grocery store and you just want to buy some jam. But there's not just jam, right? Like there's jelly and there's jam with seeds and there's jam without seeds and there's organic jam and there's local jam and there's a million different flavors and it's very overwhelming, so you leave without getting any jam. That's what creating content can feel like, and it leads us to decision fatigue. So remember, you have your home-based content, you've chosen maybe one or two additional platforms at this point, and how can you repurpose them without feeling like you have to be everywhere all the time, every single day? We're looking for impact here. What does your audience need to be impacted by you? And that's where I want you to spend some time today thinking about how could you repurpose in the most effective way for yourself? Because we're still in that planning as a practice thing. This isn't perfect yet. And it will never be perfect because the thing about content is it's always iterating. It's always changing based on what you learn about your audience, what you learn about your business, and what feels good to you. So when you are starting to think about repurposing, give yourself permission to make it imperfect, to try things, to see what works and what doesn't work, because I promise you there's going to be things that don't land. And the things that do land are going to surprise you. So this is our last day of the planning week. And you can reuse everything I've taught you every single week and every single month, depending on how you like to plan. Now, I would love to see you back here tomorrow. I'm going to send you one more email tomorrow to wrap everything up. And I look forward to our call today. If you are ready to get online live and ask me questions, I'm here for it. I would love to chat with you and I'll talk to you then. If not, I hope this has been helpful and I'd love to hear how it worked for you. Take care.